A lot of news around Shohei Ohtani this week. Some saying Shohei Ohtani's free agent value taking a significant hit with his torn ligament in his pitching arm. Some, though, saying a $500 million deal is still going to happen. Lots of people saying that. So maybe that's the case. But over the past year, these projected numbers have gotten larger and larger. It's like an arms race for baseball pundits. Name the highest possible figure and sound informed. I'm not saying Shohei Ohtani isn't a special player. I am saying there is a limit to what you can pay one player and still win. What is that number? How much can you pay one guy? That's a big question. Let's do a little digging in. Look, I hate to be a killjoy. It's my job. But someone has to show some fiscal responsibility around here. Baseball is a team sport, 26-man roster. You might love signing superstar free agents, but every team works within a budget, no matter how big or how small. If you're the Mets or the Yankees or the Rays or the Pirates. And I've said in the past, during the approach to free agency, whatever you can pay one player, that's basically what you pay for when you pay Bryce Harper or Mookie Betts or Aaron Judge. But there is a limit. So let's start here. Here are the players who occupy the biggest percentage of their team payroll. They are mostly clubs that were contenders and have since gone into a rebuild. Steven Strasburg, who's now retiring, Joey Votto, Miguel Cabrera, big contracts with clubs that were once flush and surging and have since torn it down. The top three, by the way, all end this year. So that's not the answer. That's not what we're looking for here. What about the clubs that spend big but are also building a sustainable winner? What do they spend on one player? So let's check out the big clubs, right? The Dodgers, the Braves, the other clubs that are setting the standard for winning and contending most every year. So here are the top clubs with the player who is taking the largest percentage of their team's payroll. We're using the AAV, average annual value, because that's what's used for the luxury tax, all right? Austin Riley makes about $21 million for the Braves. That's 10% of the Braves' payroll, just over 10%. Mookie Betts makes over $30 million a year. He makes 13.7% of the Dodgers' payroll. Jose Altuve, defending champion Astros, makes just over 13%. I included the Yankees and the Phillies as well. Maybe they're not winning as much as the others, but Aaron Judge makes $40 million a year. But the Yankees have a big budget. Judge is at 14.4% of the Yankees' payroll. Phillies just signed Trey Turner, right? Long term. $27.3 million AAV. Just over 11% of the club's payroll. So what I'm saying is, this is your answer. This is it. These are the successful teams with sustained success. They spend retail on the free agent market. All of them are in the top 10 in payroll. And yet, the answer is, you can spend between 10 and 14% on one player and win. Now, what about the teams that go beyond that? That can lead to trouble, right? The Angels spend 16.7% on just Mike Trout. Between Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon, they spend 48% of their payroll on three guys. Almost half for three players. You have 23 more guys to pay with the other half. The Texas Rangers went on a spending spree. This year, gotten into playoff position. Right now, Jacob deGrom makes $37 million a year. That's 18.9% of the Rangers' payroll. deGrom, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, three guys, also eating 48% of team payroll. That's not healthy. It's giving them a big bump, but that's a large allocation to three players where only two are currently playing. Let's keep playing this game. Padres, for all their big spending, actually a little more prudent. Manny Machado makes $31.8 million a year. That's just 12.8% of the San Diego payroll. But as we're learning, how many big players or aircraft carriers can you afford? There's an answer, and that answer is three. Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis combined take up nearly a third of the Padres' payroll. A third now is better than half, which is what we were talking about with the Angels and the Rangers, and paying their big three. The Padres' issue is that all three of their aircraft carriers are signed for the next 10 years. So, what can you afford to pay Shohei Ohtani? Now, you can say he's two players still, right? There's a hitter and there's a pitcher. They're both great. But he does have one human body, and an injury to many different parts of that body can take out both the hitter and the pitcher at the same time. And now it is unlikely he's going to pitch next year at all. So here we go. I'm going to do the math. You ready? If you're top five in payroll, you have about $250 million in payroll. Let's give it a boost. I'm going to call it 285. I'm generous. We're determined now. We have determined that a healthy percentage for one player is 10 to 14%. I'll go high end, 14%. 14% of 285 a year, $39.9 million a year. I'm a soft touch. Bob Costas, I'll bump it to $40 million a year. I'll do it.
Do I hear 45?
Well, no, we don't.
All
I
right.
want to be prudent here. I want to do 6 years, but I'm going to bump it to 8 years. 8 years, $40 million. That's a $320 million contract. That's as high as I can go, even in fantasy land. How you get to 500, I don't know. Good luck. That's my answer. That's my advice. I got there, and I was generous. Hannah Kaiser is here. Bob Costas is here. How do we get to $5 million? Let me start you, Hannah. How do we get to $500 million?
Wait. I have an issue with your essay.
You do? Well, let me look at it. Go ahead.
Percentages have a lot more to do with what you're paying everyone else than what you're paying your top players. And the Angels' problem the past couple of years has certainly, Rendon aside, has certainly not been that they're paying Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, where they're paying Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani in particular is a steal. Their problem is that they haven't been willing to pay. If they were paying the other 23 guys more, those percentages would look smaller.
Right.
And they would probably be a better team.
But they're already top 10 in payroll. Like, there are limits to where you can go. The high end right now are paying onerous luxury taxes, and that will usually retrench.
You had the Phillies, you had the Yankees in that those sort of guys who are in the safe zone of percentages, but those teams have much bigger payrolls than the Angels.
Well, that's the point. Like, so if you go $50 million and your payroll is, a lot of teams have $200 million payrolls, you're going to pay a quarter of your payroll? I don't see it happening. Well,
Judge's $40 million, just as one example, is 14% of the Yankees' payroll. Half of that, Jose Ramirez, a relative bargain, and they have to pay him. He's their one superstar. That's 23% of the Guardians' much lower payroll. Joey Votto's, what is Joey Votto? $22.5 million is 27% of the Reds' payroll. Miguel Cabrera makes $30 million. You know, he's grandfathered in. He's on his way out.
All those guys were. And I didn't include Tyler Glasnow with the Rays because they're not paying. Their payroll is so small. He's at 20% of the payroll. I'm throwing them out and saying, operating big luxury teams that use big money, because that's all that's going to be involved in Ohtani. What can they pay Shohei Ohtani? And I still think those GMs, with their people in their economics department and people, they have math majors crunching it in the
Yes, they do.
They're going 10 to 14% is where we'll go on this. I believe that.
Your general principle, I think Hannah's point is correct that it's a bit skewed, but your general principle, I think, is correct.
I don't see skewed at all, but go ahead for the rest.
No, it's skewed a little bit in terms of percentages. You can take individual situations and make them look better or worse using that. But in the big picture, I think that you're correct. A team like Atlanta stands out, however. They don't have to pursue Shohei Ohtani. They've got all these players in their prime tied up for several years at team reasonable. The phrase we usually hear is team friendly, but let's say team reasonable contracts.
Still making a guy rich.
Still
making him rich.
And the Dodgers can afford to pursue Ohtani because their financial reality is different, but Mookie and Freddie fit nicely, and then they can pursue Ohtani as well.
I think even learn from the Dodgers. Look, they're still and they're winning big now. They've got a comfortable lead again. But even they have their superstars. But this year they pumped the brakes a bit, saying we have to let a fresh infusion of talent get in. Even if rookies where they work out, they don't. We have lots of retreads. Jason Hayward. We've got to trade for Lance Lynn. They're willing to take chances and not keep pressing. I think that's the point I'm trying to make: is keep pressing. Mets 2022 style, right? Get big, and we see what happened with the Mets 1 year later.
Well, I think the Braves are such an interesting example because it's not, sort of some of the more egregious contracts aside, these guys are all, they're rich, they're making good money, and they're not running a small payroll, and they're not relying necessarily on a lot of pre-arb team control guys, but they are signing them before they reach free agency. The amount of money that Shohei Ohtani is going to make in the offseason is simply a product of the fact that that's what happens when that the market will drive them up. If every one of these teams, who's going to sign him then? Every one of these teams says their mathematician sits down their owner and their GM and they say, you can't go any higher than 13%. And then they all offer him 13%. And then somebody says, what if we did 13.5? And then, suddenly you're doing that again. That's how they got there.
Steve Cohen or somebody who's willing to go there might say, what if it's 20%?
Listen, as we know, 20 years ago, half the league operated like that. Let's just keep... We have to get this guy. Then it got down to about 5 teams. Then it got to about 3 teams. Now, I don't know if you have any teams. The Angels were that one club, and I think now they've learned their lesson. You can't pile in this and keep going and riding this superstar train. And I think most teams, it won't be the winter freeze of 3-4 years ago. But remember, you do have a market like that. If no one is down with $500 million, it's not getting there. You can't drive it. And you can say, oh, are these teams talking to each other? No, it's 30 GMs being prudent saying, we can't do that.
Couple of quick thoughts here. Lindor, Verlander, Scherzer, Diaz take up 49% of the largest payroll in baseball.
Right.
Steve Cohen can afford it. At present, one of those guys is in uniform and playing for the Mets, so it looks even more egregious. Now, when you talk about Ohtani, second point, the Players Association is going to want a record-setting deal for reasons that we all understand. But at some point, somebody, and Ohtani might be the somebody, is going to say, you know what? I want to go to a certain situation, or even the Angels hope, stay in a certain situation, and I'll do it for less than what, quote, market value might be if I took the highest offer. He might do that.
Let's look at the largest contracts that are out there. I think he can do that, and he's just taking off a little bit of money. He's getting an enormous amount. Even the largest contracts, Mike Trout's at the largest contract there is. Let's put that up there. Even he's in the low 400s and then the 300s. So I'm just wondering where all this money came from that it's going to be 500. He is still one guy. And what's the cautionary tale you just mentioned? The Mets. I think even Steve Cohen is going, I wonder what the Mets think. Maybe it's Steve Cohen. I don't want to pin it on him. But I wonder what the Mets are thinking of that Lindor deal already. And they're was it year 2 of it? And they're thinking, wow, did we do the right thing? So now, hey, let's just keep plunging forward with more money. There's 426, 365, 360. Enormous sums. Nobody's even getting a whiff of 500. I just don't think it happens.
Well, what if you're the Dodgers and you say to Shohei Ohtani, this is what we feel we can afford. $40 million. Beneath your market value, but still recently the top of the salary scale. We can afford $40 million, but we can guarantee you a contender. We can guarantee you Southern California. We can guarantee you surrounded by the likes of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and a winning culture. That might be a winning argument.
8 for 40 is 320.
Yes.
That's what I offered. What was my offer?
I think he ends up getting more than 8 is the other part.
And that's foolish, right? But remember, the Yankees held the line on Robinson Cano. How did they feel about that? And Robinson just wanted 10 years. Yankees going 7 years. I forgot what the number was, or 26, 27.
Robinson Cano, by the way, is $20 million of dead money on the Met payroll this year.
Right. So, but they even said, like, it's the modern way of GM thinking where it's like the 10 thing. Even Votto and Cabrera. These last years are a slog.
Yeah.
How do they not learn from that?
Well, Shohei Ohtani is extremely valuable as a DH alone. Right now, as a DH who's getting no benefit from the defense, he's a full win better than the next AL batter, which is shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., who's getting a lot of defensive value in that metric in terms of WAR. Which is just to say that in addition to being so versatile and so interesting and so marketable, he actually is in some ways a good investment, because even if you are only getting the bat, no fielding, which you would do if he gave up the pitching, I assume.
You would think.
He's still valuable.
Yeah. Oh, he's still top 3 in OPS last 3 years. So he's a $35 to $40 million a year player as a hitter alone. But that's not getting to 500. Do you know that's the 500? All right, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I've been wrong before.
Well, he's not the same gate attraction if he's not the dual identity player either.
True. That's true. We're going to ask you, the thinking fan. Let us know at MLB Now. What would you put out there on the table? I don't know if it's your money. If it's your money.
Right.
But again, it feels so great. We'll get it all back. Okay. At MLB Now, what would your contract offer be to Shohei Ohtani? You can also contact the show, 833-644-7496. Bob's left messages. He had a gripe with me just the other day.
Oh, no, I didn't. I texted you. I didn't leave you a message there.